Hi, Misha here, and when the gun world gives me an excuse to talk about Walthers, I take it, even if I've talked about them quite recently. It even came up in a few recent videos. My thoughts, opinions, and if I was going to get one of the P99 AS Final Edition commemorative limited edition guns. Well, really wasn't planning on it, but found one for a decent price, and I'm going to talk about it. The goods, the bads, and why I probably won't keep one, but maybe you should. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting little talk. I'm just reminiscing about the P99, a gun that I've had a quarter-century history with by this year, 2024. And we'll begin by seeing how the packaging is. And I don't know if I have this right way up or not, but oh well. And as always, if you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to help support us, check out the link to Patreon. With that, let's unbox this bad boy. So when I ordered these, I was confused why the box weighed so much on the FedEx site. Now I get it. First impressions, presentation, pretty nice. Cardboard box. It's an old, like, kind of hat box style. Kind of reminds me of the old Walther European cardboard boxes they used to use. Get this open here. Hang on a second, switch you down for a second. There we go. Had a little bit of suckage there at the air. Yeah, it's a cardboard box. Then inside we have a Pelican style case. Yeah, nothing else, just that. So good presentation, not overly done, but at least you know it's something special. Folding handle, again, Pelican case. And of course it holds itself open. And this is the good, what we have here. Nice, clean, simple presentation. Nothing on the top as far as I can tell. We have the gun and some plastic. We have a second mag. There's one in the gun. Mag loader. And we have a coin. Simple and clean. I like this. But now for the bad. At least what I don't like. This is a 2-layer case, so you lift up on this. And then underneath we have the rest of our accessories. And they're just kind of dumped in here. No foam on the bottom or anything. So we've got manual, our lock, small parts in a bag, more small parts in a bag, or cleaning, I don't know. And our 2 back straps are just floating down here. And is that it? I was wondering if there was a cleaning rod. If there is, I am missing it. It could very well be, but I don't see it. So yeah, the rest of the stuff just kind of dumped in the bottom. And if you flip this over, you'll notice just a cutout. I'm not crazy about that. They could have done something, I think. What do you think, though? I think the original way was much better. Moving from this to a case you've seen many times in many videos, my original P99 so-called military. this is how it is displayed. You have spot for your spare mag, polymer cleaning rod, and originally you actually had your back straps in one area and then the small parts in another, but I just combined them into one bag. And of course your manual's up here. Test fire cartridge 2. The one thing you don't see, and that Walther just didn't include back then, was the mag loader. They started doing that with the PPQ, I believe. So overall, less fancy, and I will fully admit this is not as good of a case. It just has simple plastic hinges, which honestly I'm amazed have lasted as long as they have. But they have. Whereas, this is a very solid case with good hinges. So overall, I still think it's a better box. I just wish they had found a better way to do the accessories. But this clean, simple presentation does help. So with that, let's get away from the case and accessories. I'm really just focusing on it because when you get a special edition, limited edition, commemorative edition, that does matter. And let's focus on the pistol itself, my original, compare and contrast, and of course, because it's me, talk about the history of the P99, because we're just celebrating a really interesting gun. Flag still with chamber flag, but not for long. At first, the new final edition and my old one here might look the same or very similar, but this is Generation 1, this is the Gen 2. I'm sure most know the difference, but we'll get into it anyway. But this is inscribed with final on the slide. These are all in the OD green so-called military frame, even though very few militaries actually use these, although quite a few police departments did. So those are kind of the differences. The standard P99 is black frame, black slide. This is a Tenifer treatment. 4-inch barrel, right at 4 inches for the 9mm, about 4 1/4 for the 40 Smith & Wesson version, and just over 7 inches long. Adjustable sights, I would say iron, but these are actually polymer. And before we move on completely, we'll look at the coin. Why not? Or rather, you'll look at it. Smooth edge, definitely solid filling. Coins aren't my favorite thing, but they're not my least favorite either. They are cool. At least I can feel them. Some Swiss guns have coins. That B&T SCW had coins. So really, I'm not hating the limited edition features here. The coin is fine. I do like the case, except for the bottom peg. Boy, it sits in there really tight in that hole. And having an engraved final is fine too. But this is a current production P99, not a retro style. But why is the P99, a pistol that's not really that popular in America, worth celebrating? And actually, why did it outlive its replacements? Well, kind of. Well, this was what put Walther on the map. Or rather, got it back on the map. Up through the 1980s, Walther was a family-owned company. But while they had success with the P38, of course, the PP, PPK, and the P1 when military, and the P5 had police success, the P88 and the later P88 Compact, while they put them into trials, not just in America for the XM9, but also West German trials and later German trials, they really didn't go anywhere. While technically the P88 was quite interesting, commercially it was a flop. And it flopped at a time when Walther's manufacturing facilities were kind of aging. It had not really had a big deal in a while. Its current CEO kind of got into the job at 82, not really expecting it. And so this all culminated after the fall of communism between 89 and 91, with the company of Umrich purchasing Karl Walther GmbH, Ulm, Germany, in 1993. And of course, they wanted to have a new gun, something to compete with, well, the Glock and other up-and-coming Wonder 9s and all that. And who better to ask than one of the inventors of the Glock, okay, not Gaston himself, but Horst Wesp, who was quite key. And so he was the leader. The project was drawn up in 93 and work began in 94. And they actually got an Italian Olympic firearms designer to go for this grip. And by 1996, it was ready to go. By early 97, it was unveiled. And by late 97, the now named P99 was in full production. It might not look it today, but for 1997, 98, this was a pretty forward-thinking gun. Okay, Glock had already done the modified Browning linkless tilting barrel design, but it improved upon it. A more rounded frame, and it did have an accessory rail, but it was proprietary. But then again, they all were at that time. But really, it was this grip. These finger grooves, checkering. Keep in mind, this was designed right as the Glock Gen 2 was coming around, prior to the Gen 3. But it was a more vertical grip, and is actually kept thinner than the Glocks thanks to the magazines, which were metal. They could have done polymer, but they chose to go metal so they could make them slimmer, holding 16 cartridges in 9mm or 12 cartridges in 40 Smith & Wesson later. And it was these interchangeable back straps. That was a really new concept for the time, to size the grip to match. Ergonomics were really key. And they also would ship these with adjustable sights for height and windage. And of course, the big deal was the trigger system here. Pretty spiffy. This is the original P99, which has a striker system, but it's a simulated double action single. Here it is in double. Notice the tail of the striker will protrude briefly, but you can also charge it a quarter and go to single action mode. Now, if you want to go back to double, we have a large but very flush decocker. Back to double. Of course, we can single. And then it would keep on single. This is actually a very nice trigger for that day and time. The earliest ones would have a split trigger, the dingus trigger, similar to a Glock, but very quickly in 98, 99, they would go to the trigger here. It still has a safety system built in, just a little more obscured. And of course, we have what I love, the German paddle mag release. Look, HK and Walther both use it, and they're some of the best handgun makers in the world. Take a hint. Now, the slide release is only on the left side, not on the right, so it's not fully ambidextrous. But then again, how often do you use the slide release? Like I said, 4-inch barrel, 7 inches overall. Weight was between 22 and 24 ounces, depending on exactly which version and, mag in, mag out, that kind of thing. But not super heavy at all. Not at all. So yeah, these hit the market in 1997 and would soon come to America. And the first importer was actually Interarms, who had imported Walthers for decades. But Sam Cummings would die, and Interarms would kind of fall off, and therefore in 1999, Smith & Wesson would take over importation. I should also give credit to Earl's Repair Services, ERS, over in Virginia. They too imported, but in much smaller numbers, usually typically special editions, limited editions, and They also were an authorized repair server. In fact, outside of what was at the time Smith & Wesson, Interarms before that, they were the only ones in America. Now, when Walther designed this gun, they really consulted European police, some militaries, but they really didn't consult anyone in North America out there. So some issues were felt to be in this gun. And that's how we end up with what this represents, our final edition, Gen 2. This would first appear in 2004, and you'll see a more rounded front to the trigger guard. The proprietary rail is gone. Now we have a single slot 1913 style, open size. The standard version still only had a slide release on the left, although a version was made with an ambi as an option. Pretty rare in America. The so-called ski hump was eliminated because some people thought it would pinch the finger. But more importantly, we have larger slide serrations in the rear, although still none in the front. By the way, this kind of scallop on the front of the slide is for the 9mm. The Smith & Wesson, to give it a little more weight, didn't have that. The decocker is unchanged. Same double single action system. Although they would rename this to AS, the P99 AS, for anti-stress because other trigger systems had been introduced. Now, one thing, the paddle mag release is enlarged, lengthened. But this actually didn't appear immediately with Gen 2. It took a minute, appearing in early 2005, but very quickly was integrated into the design. So yeah, a few minor things, and also the mags were changed. It's easy to tell Gen 1 from Gen 2. Gen 1 have a smooth side with the witness holes on the side. Gen 2 have these cuts, and the holes are on the back. They still have a blued finish, at least for the P99. Yeah. The Gen 1s hold 16 rounds. Gen 2s hold 15, or 11 in 40 Smith & Wesson. That was because of these cuts and just try to improve reliability, ease of loading, ease of getting a full mag. I will say this was 16 rounds in is a little, you have to kind of slap it to get in the gun. This is a little easier, and still 15 shots is fine. It's kind of more of a standard size too. And here they are side by side again. Notice that ski hump under the trigger. I understand why they put it there, the concept of keeping it even, but also I can understand why it might get some people's fingers. Personally, it never got mine, but hey. Also, the large serrations that come all the way versus the originals that are just on the bottom part. Yeah, these are easier to grasp. And of course, having a standard rail, even if it's a single slot, is still better than a proprietary. But again, in 96, when this was being finalized, there wasn't really a 1913 rail on any handgun. So you can't really blame them for that. And otherwise, that's pretty much the changes, at least up until 2005 where we're at. Now, the standard P99, like I said, was black on black with a Tennifer slide, high quality Walther barrel, reinforced polymer, kind of soft back straps. But Walther has done special editions over the years, quite a number in fact. One of the biggest publicity coups for the P99 was that in 1997, I believe it was featured in Tomorrow Never Dies, the James Bond film. Of course, Bond had been using, yes, the PPK, also some other Walthers, including the P5 and the PP in the past, so it made sense that the P99, although kind of a larger gun for Special Agent. Anyway, to commemorate this, Carl Walther would release the MI6 Special Edition, 1,000 pieces, and then when it was in the film The World Was Not Enough, a second run of MI6, another 1,000, were done. There would also be the Millennium edition, to 2,000 of those, because everyone was doing year 2000 special editions. There would be mine here, the Military OD Frame Special Edition. There would also be a, quote, titanium special edition, which had the standard black frame, but then a titanium coated-ish slide, but it was really just steel underneath. And so on and so forth. So you see that. But there would also be some trials guns for police, including the P99 TA, which was a model 2002, which would actually trial out some features that would appear in the Gen 2 later, including the rounded trigger guard, the 1913 single slot rail, but it also had some features that would not be, like an ambi slide release and actually an ambi decocker. Kind of interesting. And that would lead to other versions, including a double action only, known originally as the P990, that was released in 1999 specifically for police departments that did not want the lighter, shorter single action trigger. When Gen 2 would come out, this would be renamed the P99 DAO. And in 2000, the P99 QA for quick action would get released. I don't own a P99 QA full size, but my compact is. Seemed logical. This is a very Glock-inspired, partially cocked trigger. But it's, of course, dead. You need to slightly charge it. Then a Glock pull. But unlike a Glock, it retains the decocker, although it's a much smaller button. See? Come on. It's really done just for disassembly, for safety purposes. But I wanted to mention the P99 QA because it's actually very important to the story. It would be this version that really captivated police and government users, leading to the P99Q around, I think it was 2008, for German police trials that kind of met their trigger, safety, reliability, and accuracy standards. It would also lead to the P99 RAD, RAD for Radom, RAD, for Poland, because they were interested in this gun. And why are these important? Well, because it actually explains why the P99 AS was kept in production, but in 2011, the P99 QA, as such, at least the original version, was actually taken out of production. And this is where the Poopy Q comes in, if you know the year 2011. This was a version really made for the North American market finally, but its features were most all from the P99Q and or the P99 RAD versions, including this ambi slide release, which again were on some P99s, and this more textured grip, and now of course we have no decocker, and we just have a product improved QA trigger. So with this around, we don't really need the P99 QA, and they finally did add the dingus to the trigger for safety's sake, and these even use the same mags. P99 Gen 2 mag, Poopy Q Gen 1 or M1 mag. In fact, the original guns shipped with mags marked on the bottom, not PPQ, but actually P99, which caused some people some confusion. The only real difference, this still has a mostly blued body type finish. This has a bit of a kind of a PVD, more of a matte finish to it. That's really about it. Same mag, 15 rounds. They're perfectly interchangeable. Just thought I'd mention that. Of course, I'm talking the PPQ M1 with the superior mag release. They would run this with the PPQ M2 with the less good, but still acceptable, Browning style button release, which is not ambidextrous. So yeah, the Poopy Q would be in production from 2011 to 2021, and it would go out. Even though this was meant to replace the P99, the P99 would actually outstrip it by a couple of years. P99 Gen 1, P99 Gen 2, P99 Gen 3, aka Poopy Q, and we could consider P99 Gen 4 the PDP, although Walther doesn't, and yeah, it has changed quite a bit, but really that same grip is still there. Of course, we now have a plate for an optic, more rail space, but the bones are still there, even if it doesn't have the superior mag release. But you see this progression. So that's the current one for the US, and will be the current one globally, because they announced that 2023 would be the final production year for the P99. So the last one's made, and these have been selling even up to police units through 2016, 2017, and even later globally. It's just kind of North America went with the Poopy Q. But times go by, and with the success of the PDP, it's finally to retire the P99. Again, first introduced in 97, taken out of production in 2023, so it made it 26 years. Not bad. Not bad at all. So that's why it's worth celebrating. And with that, let's get back to what I think of this special edition kit. The gun itself, unless they wanted to do a retro Gen 1, which I don't blame them for not, is fine. I think they did it right. The green frame hasn't been made in a while. People like it. Cool. I like that it has the special inscription. It's a P99. You can easily use this gun. It's not all engraved and fancy special finish. This could be a service gun. I would suspect, and I could be totally wrong, but I would suspect that Germany is using up the remaining stock of parts. Why not? And the coin, if you need something a little extra, is cool. The case, for the most part, is cool. And I do like the outer kind of hat box. But on the other hand, you're not really getting a lot of accessories. 2 mags, a mag loader, and then just the kind of usual small parts. And the back straps. No cleaning kit. Kind of a fancy cleaning kit would be nice. A 3rd mag would be nice. So what would I have preferred? Well, you know, my Poopy Q here is kind of the opposite, is a 1st edition marked gun. So what I would have done was kind of what Walther already did with this. It came in a nicer, more roomy case than the standard Poopy Q, with 3 mags instead of 2, mag loader, and it came with a few extra features that the standard Poopy Q didn't have, including steel night sights and a factory threaded barrel, 4.5 inches or 4.6 to be exact, with cap. And while it doesn't come with a suppressor, it even had a cutout in the case for the suppressor. This looked special, and everything's accessible right here. It's efficiently laid out, but when you open it, it's presented well. I'm just trying to be fair, objective, and you know, I like Walthers, so I want to really be just, you know, trying to say some negatives. I would say this case is fine. This pistol fits really tight. Everything does too. This seems more of a storage case. This, I can attest to, having had it well over a decade, is a perfectly usable range case. And it's held up fine, and it's been battered quite a bit. Again, it's not as nice. I wouldn't drop it out of a helicopter, but also getting the gun out is super easy, whereas this is really in there. So that's just my opinion, my take. So if you don't have a P99 and want one, I don't blame you for wanting to get a new gun. Really don't. And I would definitely get 9mm. So this isn't a bad option. It doesn't really cost much more than a standard P99 would, even though they've been in kind of limited supply in America for a number of years now. But I think MSRP is around $850, but realistically, you're probably in the 7s, maybe high 6s. Not sure. Considering the nice case and everything, and the fact that these aren't gettable and it has the OD frame, sure. Special editions are always going to cost a little more. The P99 was always a little more expensive than the PPQ. It's kind of funny, I know, but I guess volume of sales. Take it as you will. That said, I'm not going to keep this one. I'm glad to have checked it out, but I don't really need it because I already have a green framed gun and it's a Gen 1, which I like. If I didn't have it, I might. Probably would. If I didn't have a P99, I would have had to add one to the collection. But this just isn't different enough. I don't really collect markings, mainly because I can't see them. And it doesn't really have any features that the standard gun doesn't. If it had a threaded barrel, something kind of interesting. If it was a P99 TA or a P99Q style gun, something I didn't really have, like European police, I would be pretty tempted to keep it. But it's very similar, pretty much identical to the P99 Gen 2s we've been able to get for 20 years, or nearly so. That's not a knock against it. I'm just saying I wanted to study it. I didn't really notice anything different enough from other Walthers, so I don't personally need it. But I get for a completionist collector, a European collector, or if you just don't own a gun, sure, why not? It's going to be a good, solid gun. They didn't ruin its duty service features. It's still a fun gun to shoot, though. I love my Walthers, and I am definitely looking forward to more trigger time with the PDP. But I wanted to give an in-depth review of this because there's just not much out there on them. And let me know what you think. Tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right, whatever. You'll probably tell me I'm wrong. That's okay. I can take it. I've been married a long time. But yeah, please comment. Let's discuss. As always, if you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help us out, check out the link to our Patreon. It's in the description. This is Misha. Hope you have a good March, and we'll catch you very soon